Jake Mitchell wiped grease from his hands and looked at the old motorcycle engine spread across his garage workbench. The night air was cool in Montana, and he could hear crickets singing outside his small house. He had been working on this bike 4 months trying to bring the vintage machine back to life. The clock on the wall showed almost midnight, but Jake was not tired. He loved working with his hands and fixing broken things. Gave him peace. His neighbors thought he was crazy for staying up so late, but Jake enjoyed the quiet hours when the world was asleep. Bright flash suddenly lit up the entire garage. Jake looked up from his work and saw a streak of light racing across the sky. The light was not like anything he had ever seen before. It was too bright to be a plane and moved too fast to be normal. The streak grew larger and brighter as it came closer. Jake walked outside to get a better look. The light was heading straight for his property. He could hear a loud roaring sound that shook the ground under his feet. The noise was getting louder, and Jake realized something was going to crash very close to his house. He ran toward his old barn, just as a massive object slammed into the ground. The impact threw Jake too. His knees and dirt flew everywhere. When the dust settled, Jake saw a strange silver craft buried halfway into the earth near his barn. The ship was unlike anything he had ever seen, with smooth curves and no visible engine. Steam rose from the damaged hull and strange lights blinked along its surface. Jake approached carefully, not sure if the thing was dangerous. He had seen enough movies to know that crashed spaceships could explode. But his curiosity was stronger than his fear. A section of the ship suddenly opened with a hissing sound. Jake jumped back and grabbed a wrench from his tool belt. A figure stumbled out of the opening and collapsed onto the ground. Jake could see it was a woman, but something was different about her. She had long silver hair and her ears came to sharp points. Her skin was pale and seemed to glow in the moonlight. She wore some kind of armor that looked like it was made from materials Jake had never seen. The woman was clearly hurt and bleeding from cuts on her arms and face. Jake forgot about his fear and ran to help her. He had always been the type of person who helped others without thinking about the consequences. The woman tried to speak, but the words were in a language Jake did not understand. Her voice was musical, but weak. He carefully lifted her and carried her toward his house. She was lighter than he expected, but her armor was definitely real. The woman kept trying to talk, but Jake could only shake his head to show he did not understand. She seemed frustrated and reached for something on her belt. The device she pulled out was small and round with lights that pulsed in different colors. She pressed it against her throat and suddenly her words changed into English that Jake could understand. "My ship is damaged," she said, her voice now clear. "I need help hiding from those who hunt me." Jake stared at her pointed ears and the impossible technology in her hands. He should have been scared or called the police, but instead he found himself nodding. "You are safe here," he told her. "What do you need?" The woman looked surprised by his quick acceptance. "Most beings would fear what they do not understand," she said. "But you offer help without questions." Jake helped her to his house and cleaned her wounds with basic first aid supplies. She explained that her name was Lirelei, and she came from far away among the stars. Her people were called elves, and they had been traveling through space for thousands of years. She told Jake that a powerful military force called the Hegemony was hunting her because she had discovered something important. The Hegemony destroyed worlds that might help refugees, and Lirelei had found coordinates that led her to Earth. "Your world was mentioned in our ancient texts as a sanctuary," she explained. "The Hegemony will come looking for me, and they will consider your people a threat if they find me here." Jake listened to her story and felt anger growing inside him. The idea that someone would destroy an entire world just for helping others seemed evil beyond belief. He looked at Lirelei and saw the fear in her strange golden eyes. "Then we make sure they do not find you," he said. Simple. Lirelei stared at him in amazement. "You would risk your world for a stranger?" Thought about his answer. He had always believed that helping others was the right thing to do, regardless of the cost. The woman sitting in his kitchen was hurt and scared, and that was all that mattered to him. Everyone deserves a chance to be safe. He said that includes you. Over the next few hours, Jake helped Lirelei move her damaged ship into his barn. They worked together to hide it under old tarps and farming equipment. The ship was much lighter than it looked, and seemed to be made from materials that defied normal physics. Lirelei showed Jake some of the technology inside. Her ship including weapons that could level buildings and computers that could think faster than any human mind. Jake was fascinated by the advanced science, but what impressed him most was how efficiently everything was designed. Your people are more clever than you know, Lirelei told him as they worked. My ship requires parts that take our finest engineers months to create, but you have already suggested 3 different ways to fix the damage using things from your garage. Jake smiled and continued working. He had always been good at fixing things and seeing solutions that others missed. It felt good to know that his skills could help someone, even if that someone was from another world. As dawn approached, Jake realized his life had changed forever. He was now hiding an alien refugee in his barn, and powerful enemies might come looking for her at any time. Most people would be terrified, but Jake felt strangely calm. He looked at Lirelei as she studied his tools with obvious curiosity. Her pointed ears and glowing skin marked her as something not human, but her expressions and gestures were easy to understand. She was just a person trying to survive, and that was something Jake could relate to. The sun rose over Montana, and Jake Mitchell began the first day of an adventure that would change not just his life, but the fate of his entire world. 3 days passed since Lirelei crashed into Jake Mitchell world, and both of them had learned to work together. Jake discovered that fixing alien technology was not much different from repairing Earth machines. The principles were the same even if the materials were strange. Lirelei was amazed by how quickly Jake understood her ship's systems. She had expected humans to be primitive, but Jake's approach to problems was both logical and creative. He used old car parts and farming tools to replace damaged components in ways that surprised her. The elf woman was healing well thanks to Jake's care and her own natural recovery abilities. She no longer needed the translator device to speak with Jake, as she learned English with remarkable speed. Her people had always been good with languages, and human speech patterns were simpler than most. Jake had told his neighbor Maya Rodriguez that he was working on a special project and needed privacy. Maya was a deputy sheriff and naturally curious about unusual activities. She had noticed the strange lights and sounds coming from Jake's property but respected his request for space. On the 4th morning, Maya drove up to Jake's house with coffee and breakfast sandwiches. She had been friends with Jake since childhood and could tell when something important was happening. Jake tried to act normal, but Maya was trained to notice when people were hiding things. I brought food, she announced, walking toward the garage. Before Jake could stop her, Maya stepped inside and froze when she saw Lirelei working on strange silver components spread across Jake's workbench. The elf woman looked up and Maya stared at the pointed ears and golden eyes that no human possessed. Jake sighed and closed the garage door behind Maya. He had hoped to keep the secret longer, but knew that Maya would find out eventually. She was too smart and too persistent to be fooled for long. Maya, this is Lirelei, Jake said calmly. She needs our help. Maya hand moved toward her service weapon, but stopped when she saw that neither Jake nor Lirelei seemed threatening. The elf woman stood slowly and raised her hands to show she was not armed. Her movements were graceful and non-threatening. I mean no harm to you or your people, Lirelei said in careful English. I am a refugee seeking safety. Maya looked between Jake and Lirelei, trying to process what she was seeing. She had dealt with unusual situations in her law enforcement career, but nothing had prepared her for meeting someone from another world. Jake explained the situation while Maya listened with growing amazement. He told her about the crash, the hegemony, and the danger that might come to Earth if Lirelei was discovered. Maya asked practical questions about evidence and security that showed her police training. We need to control information, Maya said finally. If anyone else finds out before we are ready, this could cause panic. Laral was impressed by Maya quick acceptance and practical thinking. Most law enforcement officers she had encountered on other worlds were either suspicious or tried to arrest first and ask questions later. Maya seemed more concerned with solving problems than following rules. Over the next week, the three of them worked together to repair the ship and prepare for possible trouble. Maya used her connections to monitor unusual activity reports and create false information to throw off any investigations. Jake continued to amaze Lirelei with his engineering skills. He had replaced her damaged navigation system with a combination of Earth electronics and alien components. The hybrid system actually worked better than the original design. Mind works differently than other species, Lirelei told Jake as they tested the repairs. Most beings think in straight lines, but you see connections that others miss. Jake was learning about galactic politics and the wider universe from Lirelei's stories. The hegemony controlled hundreds of worlds through fear and superior technology. They believed that efficient conquest was better than diplomatic solutions. The hegemony sees emotional connections as weakness. Lirelei explained they think beings who help others are flawed and dangerous to their order. Maya shook her head at this philosophy. In her experience, the strongest communities were built on people helping each other. She could not understand how anyone could see compassion as a flaw. Jake was fascinated by the advanced technology, but troubled by how it was used. The hegemony had weapons that could destroy planets and ships that could travel between stars in days. Their power was incredible, but they used it only for control and conquest. What about other species? Jake asked. Do any of them fight back? Some try, Lirelei said sadly, but the hegemony has advantages in numbers and technology. Most resistance movements are crushed quickly. Maya studied the star charts that Lirelei showed them. Earth was located in what galactic powers considered empty space. The solar system had been ignored because it seemed to have no valuable resources or intelligent life that might be our advantage, Maya said. No one expects humans to be a threat. Lirelei had begun to see humans differently than she first expected. Jake's mechanical skills and creative thinking impressed her, but Maya's strategic mind was equally valuable. The deputy sheriff understood tactics and planning in ways that could be useful as they worked together. Lirelei found herself growing attached to both humans. Jake's kindness had saved her life, but his determination to help, despite the risks, showed courage that her own people would respect. Maya, practical support, and quick thinking proved that humans could be valuable allies. Jake was also developing feelings for Lirelei that went beyond simple friendship. She was beautiful in an otherworldly way, but her intelligence and strength were what really attracted him. He had never met anyone who challenged him intellectually while sharing his love of solving complex problems. The repair work was nearly finished, and they all knew that decisions would have to be made soon. Lirelei's ship could take her anywhere in the galaxy, but leaving would mean abandoning the humans who had helped her. More importantly, staying might bring the hegemony to Earth and put billions of innocent people in danger. The three of them discussed options late into each night, but no perfect solution existed. Maya suggested contacting Earth governments, but Lirelei warned that most species reacted poorly to sudden contact with galactic civilization. Panic and poor decisions usually followed first contact, and the hegemony would use that chaos to justify intervention. Jake proposed that they continue hiding until they could find a better solution. His garage had worked so far, and Montana was isolated enough to avoid casual discovery. The plan was not perfect, but it gave them time to think. The 10th day since the crash, Lirelei sensors detected ships entering the outer solar system. The hegemony had found her trail and was beginning a systematic search. Jake's garage had protected them for a while, but their peaceful hiding time was coming to an end. The three of them stood in the barn, looking at the repaired ship, and knowing that everything was about to change. Jake had gone from simple mechanic to keeper of galactic secrets in less than 2 weeks. Maya checked her equipment and prepared for whatever might come. Her law enforcement training would be tested in ways the police academy had never imagined. Lirelei looked at her 2 human friends and felt something she had not experienced in years. Hoped that maybe this time things could be different. Commander Zara Veltan stood on the bridge of her warship as it entered the solar system. Her red-scaled skin reflected the light from the command displays, and her black eyes showed no emotion. The hegemony officer had been hunting Lirelei for months and was determined to complete her missions. Her belonged to a species that valued efficiency above all else. Emotions were considered weaknesses that led to poor decisions. Her people had joined the hegemony because their military doctrine matched their natural behavior patterns. The elf had embarrassed Zara during their last encounter on the mining world of Keptos. Lirelei had escaped during what should have been a perfect capture operation. Zara's personal record had been damaged, and she needed to restore her reputation. Long-range sensors show energy signatures consistent with our target, the navigation officer reported. The trail leads to the third planet. Sarah studied the primitive world on her screens. Earth showed no signs of advanced technology or space travel. The indigenous species appeared to be in early industrial development stages. Perfect hiding place for a desperate refugee. Begin detailed surface scans, she ordered. Look for anything that does not belong. Jake, Maya, and Lirelei worked frantically to prepare for the coming threat. The elf woman had taught them basic combat techniques using weapons from her ship, but she warned that fighting the hegemony directly would be suicide. Your people have advantages you do not realize, Lirelei told them, as they practiced the hegemony fights according to established patterns. But humans think in ways they will not expect. Jake had been studying the alien weapons and found them surprisingly similar to hunting rifles he knew well. The power source was different, but the aiming and firing principles were familiar. Maya picked up the combat techniques quickly, thanks to her law enforcement training. They moved the ship deeper into the woods behind Jake's property and covered it with camouflage netting. Jake had learned from hunting that the best hiding places were ones that looked completely natural. Maya used her police contacts to monitor air traffic and unusual sightings in the area. She created false reports to send investigators away from their location, while keeping track of anything that might be alien activity. The first sign of trouble came when ranch hands 20 miles away reported strange lights in the sky. Jake recognized the description as hegemony scout ships beginning their search pattern. We need to create false trails, Jake said, studying local maps. If they are tracking energy signatures, we can lead them away from Hera. Lirelei was impressed by Jake's tactical thinking. Most species would either hide completely or fight directly, but Jake proposed deception that could work against superior technology. They spent 2 days setting up false crash sites, using parts from Lirelei's ship and Earth electronics. The decoy locations would register on alien sensors, but not reveal anything important. When investigated, Maya coordinated with local hunters and ranchers to report sightings in areas away from Jake's property. She told them the government was conducting secret military exercises and asked for their cooperation in providing false information. The plan worked for several days as hegemony scouts investigated fake crash sites and followed electronic trails that led nowhere. Zara grew frustrated as each lead proved false, but continued the systematic search. Jake used his knowledge of local terrain to stay ahead of the alien patrols. He had hunted these mountains since childhood and knew every trail and hiding place. The hegemony technology was advanced, but their operators did not understand Earth geography. During quiet moments between alerts, Lirelei taught Jake and Maya more about galactic warfare. The hegemony relied on overwhelming firepower and strict tactical doctrine their commanders were trained to follow. Established procedures rather than adapt to new situations. Her species' natural chaos might be an advantage, she explained. The hegemony expects logical behavior and predictable responses. Maya suggested involving her fellow deputies, but Lirelei warned against expanding their group too quickly. Trust was essential, but too many people would make security impossible. The three of them could move and hide effectively, but larger groups would be easier to detect. In the 6th day of the search, hegemony scouts found one of their false crash sites, but also discovered evidence of the deception. Zara realized she was being deliberately misled and changed her tactics. The Alien Commander began focusing on population centers and unusual activity reports. Her species was good at reading behavior patterns, and she knew that hidden refugees often required local help. Jake property was isolated, but not completely hidden from satellite observation. Zara ordered detailed analysis of recent changes in the area, including new construction, heat signatures, and vehicle movements. The break in their security came when a delivery truck brought supplies to Jake's house at the wrong time. A hegemony scout ship was passing overhead and detected the unusual activity. For such a remote locations, studied the surveillance data, and noticed that Jake had been receiving more deliveries than normal for someone living alone. The pattern suggested he was supporting additional people, which matched refugee behavior. Identified, she announced to her crew. Prepare landing forces for immediate deployment. Jake, Maya, and Lirelei detected the approaching ships just minutes before they arrived. The three humans grabbed weapons and equipment while Lirelei activated her ship emergency systems. 2 hegemony shuttles landed in the clearing near Jake's house, and armed soldiers began advancing toward the buildings. The aliens moved with military precision, but they were not prepared for human tactics. Jake had set up defensive positions using farm equipment and natural terrain features. He knew that direct confrontation would fail, but harassment and delay might give them time to escape. Maya coordinated their withdrawal using police tactical training, while Jake provided covering fire with alien weapons. The hegemony soldiers were surprised by the effective resistance from supposedly primitive beings. Lirelei piloted her ship out of hiding and engaged the enemy shuttles. Her superior knowledge of hegemony technology gave her an advantage, but she was outnumbered and outgunned. The battle lasted only minutes before Jake called for retreat. They had proven they could fight, but could not win a sustained engagement against superior numbers. The 3 of them escaped into the mountains. As hegemony reinforcements arrived, Sarah personally investigated Jake property and found evidence of advanced technology mixed with primitive Earth equipment. The combination was unusual and suggested that her target had found more help than expected. The humans showed tactical awareness beyond their development level, she reported to her superiors. This complicates the situation. Jake, Maya, and Lirelei regrouped at an old mining camp deep in the mountains. They had saved Lirelei's ship and most of their equipment, but could no longer hide passively. The hegemony knew they were on Earth and would not stop searching. We need to change our approach, Maya said, studying topographic maps. They have better technology, but we know this. Teratragic agreed, and began planning a different kind of campaign. Instead of hiding, they would use the mountains and forests to conduct hit-and-run attacks. The goal was not to win battles, but to make the hegemony search too expensive to continually lay. Looked at her human friends with growing respect. They had faced impossible odds and adapted their tactics instead of surrendering. Their courage reminded her why some species were worth fighting. Fourth hunt had intensified, but Jake, Maya, and Lirelei were no longer just running, they were beginning to fight back. Commander Zaravel Tan was growing impatient with the extended search operation. Her superiors expected quick, efficient results, but the humans were proving more difficult to capture than anticipated. The primitive world was somehow producing tactical challenges that her training had not prepared her for. Jake Mitchell had transformed from a simple mechanic into something resembling a military commander. Over the past 2 weeks, he studied hegemony patrol patterns and found weaknesses in their systematic approach. The aliens were predictable because they followed established procedures. Maya Rodriguez used her law enforcement connections to organize local support without revealing the true situation. She told ranchers and hunters that foreign agents were operating in the area and asked them to report suspicious activity. Most locals were happy to help defend their territorial. Ailey had taught her human friends everything she could about hegemony technology and tactics. She was amazed by how quickly they adapted alien concepts to Earth conditions. Jake in particular showed a natural understanding of both technical systems and strategic thinking. The resistance campaign began with small raids on isolated hegemony positions. Jake used hunting knowledge to approach scout teams undetected, while Maya provided communications and coordination. Their attacks were brief and focused on capturing equipment rather than killing enemies. Successful raid provided more alien technology for Jake to study and modify. He discovered that hegemony weapons could be adapted to work with Earth power sources and materials. The hybrid systems often performed better than the original designs. Era realized that standard suppression tactics were not working against the humans. They did not fight like any species she had encountered before. Their attacks came from unexpected directions and used methods that violated normal military doctrine. The commander decided to escalate the operation and requested additional forces from her superiors. She also began using more aggressive tactics, including threatening local civilians to force the refugees to surrender. This decision proved to be a mistake, as it united the local population against the hegemony. Maya was able to organize a broader resistance network by convincing people that foreign invaders were threatening their community. Jake discovered that Earth technology had unexpected advantages against alien systems. Hegemony sensors were designed to detect advanced energy signatures, but had trouble tracking primitive electronics and mechanical devices. He began building weapons and communication systems that combined alien technology with Earth engineering. The hybrid devices were crude by galactic standards, but effective against enemies who were not prepared for such unusual combinations. The first major battle occurred when Zara attempted to capture Jake's house and barn with overwhelming force. She brought 3 full squads of soldiers and heavy weapons to ensure quick victory. Jake had anticipated this attack and prepared the area with carefully placed traps and defensive positions. He used farm equipment, industrial machinery, and hunting supplies to create obstacles that channeled the enemy advance into predetermined kill zones. Maya coordinated with local hunters to provide sniper support from concealed positions in the surrounding hills. The volunteer fighters were skilled marksmen who understood the terrain better than any alien. Invidera Lorelei piloted her ship in support of the ground forces, using hit-and-run attacks against hegemony vehicles. Her knowledge of enemy technology allowed her to target critical systems and disable larger weapons. The battle lasted 6 hours and ended with hegemony forces retreating after taking heavy casualties. Zara had not expected such coordinated resistance from supposedly primitive beings. Her soldiers were trained to fight other advanced species, not resourceful humans using improvised tactics. Jake captured several intact alien vehicles and weapons during the fighting. He immediately began studying the new technology and planning ways to integrate it into their expanding arsenal. Maya organized medical care for wounded fighters and established better communication networks to coordinate future operations. Her leadership skills were proving essential for managing the growing resistance movement. Word of the successful defense spread throughout the local community, and volunteers began arriving to help fight the invaders. Jake found himself commanding a force of ranchers, hunters, and military veterans who were determined to protect their homes. Ara reported the situation to her superiors and requested permission to use orbital bombardment to eliminate the resistance. The hegemony military doctrine called for escalation when ground forces proved insufficient. However, orbital strikes would require destroying large areas of the planet's surface and might damage resources that the hegemony wanted to claim. The request was denied, and Zara was ordered to continue ground operations. Jake used the breathing space to expand defensive preparations throughout the region. He taught local volunteers how to use captured alien weapons and helped them build improvised vehicles and communication systems. Maya established supply lines and intelligence networks that kept the resistance informed about hegemony movements. Her police experience was invaluable for organizing clandestine operations and maintaining security. The second major battle occurred 2 weeks later, when Zara launched coordinated attacks on multiple resistance positions simultaneously. She hoped to overwhelm the human defenders by forcing them to fight on several fronts. Jake had anticipated this strategy and prepared mobile defense forces that could rapidly move between threatened positions. He used modified farm trucks and construction equipment to create armored vehicles that could transport fighters and weapons quickly. The fighting spread across 50 square miles of Montana wilderness as small unit actions developed into larger engagements. Hegemony forces found themselves constantly surprised by human tactics that ignored conventional military wisdom. Laurel flew reconnaissance missions and provided air support where needed. Her ship was faster and more maneuverable than Hegemony fighters, but she had to be careful not to be overwhelmed by superior numbers. The decisive moment came when Jake led a direct assault on Zara command post, using a combination of stealth infiltration and overwhelming firepower. He had learned enough about Hegemony technology to disable their defensive systems. Maya coordinated diversionary attacks that drew enemy forces away from the main target, while local volunteers provided covering fire and escape routes. The operation required precise timing and perfect coordination. Jake team captured the command post and took Zara prisoner, along with valuable intelligence about Hegemony operations. The victory was both tactical and psychological, as it proved that human forces could defeat advanced alien technologies. Zara found herself facing an enemy commander who had started as a simple mechanic, but now demonstrated strategic thinking that impressed even her. The human had adapted to galactic warfare in ways that should have been impossible. Jake treated his alien prisoner with respect. Despite the destruction she had brought to his home, the Hegemony commander was confused by this behavior as her own. People did not show mercy to defeated enemies. The successful operations had attracted attention from other galactic powers, who were monitoring the unusual situation. Observer ships from several species arrived in the solar system to investigate reports of humans defeating Hegemony forces. Jake realized that the fighting had larger implications beyond protecting Lyra. Earth had been discovered by the galactic community, and their response to the crisis would determine how other species viewed humanity. The Resistance had won important battles, but the war was far from over. Zara's superiors would eventually send larger forces to reclaim their lost territory. Jake needed to prepare for even greater challenges, while hoping that help might come from unexpected sources. The arrival of observer ships from the Galactic Council changed everything. Jake Mitchell had been preparing for another Hegemony assault when massive vessels appeared in Earth orbit. Representatives from 12 different species had come to investigate reports of humans defeating advanced military forces. Jake stood in his damaged garage looking at alien technology scattered across his workbench. 3 weeks ago he had been a simple mechanic fixing motorcycles. Now he was apparently the leader of the first successful resistance against Hegemony expansion in decades. Maya Rodriguez had been promoted to head of planetary defense by officials who were still trying to understand what had happened. Her police experience and tactical skills made her the obvious choice for coordinating Earth's securital relay. Starweaver watched from the barn as diplomatic shuttles landed near Jake House. The elf woman had found something on Earth that she had not expected to discover: a home worth fighting for and people willing to stand beside her commander. Zara Veltan remained under guard in a hastily constructed detention facility. She had been treated better as a prisoner than she had treated many of her own subordinates. The experience was forcing her to reconsider beliefs about strength and efficiency. The first Galactic Council representative to meet with Jake was Ambassador Thoric from the Centauri Alliance. His people resembled tall gray humanoids with large black eyes. They had been observing human development for decades, but had not expected such rapid adaptation to galactic technology. Or species shows remarkable potential, Thoric told Jake as they walked through the makeshift resistance camp. Most worlds take centuries to develop effective countermeasures against Hegemony tactics. Jake was uncomfortable with the attention and praise. He had done what seemed necessary to protect his friends and community. The idea that his actions might have galactic significance was difficult to accept. Maya joined their conversation, bringing reports about volunteer fighters who continued arriving from across the region. Word had spread about the successful defense, and people wanted to help protect Earth from future threats. The Galactic Council was most interested in how humans had combined primitive and advanced technology to create effective weapons. Jake demonstrated some of his hybrid devices and explained his problem. Solving approach, we adapt what we have to meet our needs, he said simply. Most of our solutions came from necessity rather than advanced knowledge. Ambassador Thoric was fascinated by human creativity and flexibility. His own people followed careful procedures when developing new technology, but humans seemed to innovate constantly under pressure. Leah Rayleigh served as translator and cultural advisor during the diplomatic meetings. Her knowledge of galactic politics was essential for helping humans understand their new situation. She also advocated strongly for Earth protection and independence. The Council offered several options for Earth's future status. They could become a protectorate under Council defense or develop their own space technology. With alien assistance, a third option was joining the growing coalition opposing hegemony expansion. Jake discussed these choices with Maya and other resistance leaders. The Scythian would affect billions of people and needed to be made carefully. They agreed that Earth should maintain independence while accepting defensive assistance. Maya proposed establishing a joint training program where humans could learn galactic military techniques while teaching their own tactical innovations. The exchange would benefit both sides and strengthen anti-hegemony forces. The most surprising development came when several hegemony soldiers requested asylum rather than returning to their units. They had been impressed by human treatment of prisoners and wanted to join the resistance against their former commander. Zara herself began questioning the hegemony system after extended conversations with Jake and Maya. She had been taught that efficiency required eliminating emotional connections, but humans had proven effective precisely because of their bonds with each other. The breakthrough in negotiations came when Jake proposed that Earth become a sanctuary world under Council protection but with human leadership. The arrangement would provide security while allowing continued independence. Thoric supported the proposal after witnessing human tactical abilities and diplomatic flexibility. His report to the Council emphasized that humanity could become valuable allies if treated as equals rather than primitive. Lele was offered positions with both the Council and resistance forces, but chose to remain on Earth. She had found purpose in helping defend the world that had given her safety when she needed it. Most the romantic relationship between Jake and Lirale had developed. Naturally, during their shared struggles, they understood each other in ways that transcended species differences and wanted to build a future together. Maya accepted leadership of the new Earth Defense Force with support from both human volunteers and alien advisors. Her combination of law enforcement experience and combat leadership made her ideal for the position. The formal signing ceremony took place in Jake Garage, where the crisis had begun. Representatives from multiple worlds gathered in the simple building to witness Earth entry into galactic civilization. Jake was offered command positions in the expanding anti-hegemony coalition, but declined major responsibilities. He preferred to remain in Montana, developing new technologies and training other mechanics and hybrid engineering techniques. The ceremony was interrupted by news that hegemony reinforcements were approaching the solar system. The new alliance would face its first test much sooner than expected, but Jake felt confident about their preparations. Sarah had been released under supervision and chose to join the resistance forces. Her knowledge of hegemony tactics and technology would be invaluable for planning defensive operations. The final battle lasted 3 days as superior numbers of hegemony ships attacked Earth orbit. The combined forces of humans, Council observers, and former hegemony defectors fought with coordination that surprised both sides. Jake's coordinated ground-based support, using modified Earth technology to disrupt enemy communications and targeting systems. His innovations proved effective against opponents who had not adapted to human engineering approaches. Maya commanded aerospace defenses with assistance from alien advisors. Her tactical flexibility and ability to integrate diverse forces created defensive strategies that confused hegemony. Commander Slorelli flew missions in support of both orbital and ground operations. Her experience bridged the gap between human creativity and galactic technology. The hybrid approach proved devastating against rigid enemy doctrine. The hegemony retreated after losing half their fleet to tactics they could not counter. The victory established Earth as a major power in galactic politics and proved that cooperation could overcome superior technologies. 6 months later, Jake stood in his expanded garage, workshop training mechanics from dozens of worlds in hybrid engineering techniques. The simple building had become an informal academy for technological innovation. Maya commanded defense forces that protected multiple worlds from hegemony attacks. Her reputation as a tactical innovator made her one of the most respected military leaders in the Galaxal era. Lay served as Earth ambassador to the Galactic Council while maintaining her home base in Montana. She had never expected to find family among humans, but had discovered bonds stronger than any she had known. The three friends often gathered in the evening to discuss their strange journey from hiding a single refugee to leading galactic resistance forces. None of them had asked for such responsibilities, but all had accepted them willingly. Earth had become the sanctuary world that literally ancient texts had promised, a place where different species could find safety and cooperation. The coordinates had been wrong, but the destination was exactly right.